So recently, my family sold our house out in the Czech countryside in the tiny village my grandfather was from. Population like less than 300. And I went there last week we all went there to go pick up, our last things that we wanted from there that we weren't going to just, leave for the next people who were going to move in or throw out or whatever, right? And I'm very conscious / wary of what I know to nostalgia / being prone to being overly sentimental at times. I try to fight very actively against that. I wasn't expecting some sort of grand revelation of, wow, this is such a monumental occasion. It's the last time I'm going to be in this place where I spent so much of my time growing up, and so on and so on. And, but I wasn't sure. I didn't think I was going to feel much of anything, with the state of things, personally and otherwise, being what it is. Then I have also been prone to fall into a state of not complete numbness, but genuinely a sort of, an inverse of the heightened effect where you're very, perceiving everything and perceiving the impact of everything. I'm perceiving it, but only like 30% of the effect is really coming through the wall. So I wasn't expecting much. And it wasn't until I was, in the bus, crossing the countryside, looking out at the vast sky, where I started feeling, I'm not even sure. It was one of those things that cannot be so easily parsed. It's kind of ambiguous register emotionally. One I would love to describe in greater detail. But this isn't the time for that, like riding your bike indoors. So, yeah, and then I was like, okay, well, I understand, a lot has been lost and time has passed and all that. Okay, well, if this is what it's going to be, this is what it's going to be. And as soon as I walked into the house, then the air, this chilly air kind of washed over me. And suddenly I was almost physically transported so far back in time. And this is not unlike when you see a replay, a showdown replay of a battle you had however many years ago, or in this case, a YouTube video of a Wi-Fi battle you had 15 years ago. Shout out to Shofu. In this old house, then I had a lot of my biggest tournament games when I was 15, 16. Before I even got into the tournament scene, I was laddering on Pokemon Online, playing in those scripted tournaments, things like that. So, and I wasn't really expecting to get hit, so hit like that. But yeah, so this relates to how recently, or even more recently, like a few days ago, then I was checking out some of the modern Pokemon battles being played in the tournament scene, Classic and whatever else, just, logging onto Smog Tours and being so detached from it. And it was similar in the sense that I was also, I was not transported to another time, but rather it felt like I stepped into a time that had been frozen because nothing had changed. And, I wasn't sure, I'm still not sure, where this video is going. Initially I was like, is this going to be another one of my meditations on human cruelty as seen through the microcosm of the worst side of our nature that competitive online Pokemon can so often be a conduit for? And, I mean, that's part of it. But I don't know, it's not even about that kind of overt nastiness, which I rail against so openly. Also, did I just check a defensive Suicune with a Specs Heatran back in 2010? There's so many games I would love to go through from that time period, but like Smogan's old YouTube channel, like it's still active, but they got rid of all the old videos, or they privated them or something. And so many old logs. I asked my grandma actually if she had my mom's old computer somewhere, because I'm certain there are some real deep cut logs that I don't even remember back there. So I'll hopefully see about that as soon as possible. But yeah, the title, while obviously taken from Paul Thomas Anderson's latest film, feels very appropriate because it felt like when I was on Smog Tours watching the games, it felt like I'd stepped into this purgatory where no matter the success, there's always another battle. And on one hand, this could be seen as a good thing, right? In the sense that look at how, no matter how bad a tournament you have, you can always redeem yourself. And that is great, of course. I don't know, there's just something dehumanizing about it that, concerns me more, and that it's just an endless slog of, the same recycling of plays and teams, and which is, not to get into my usual team passing spiel, but this was kind of activated when I was watching people who I know do not understand DPPOU using these like deep cut DPP strategies like Shadow Ball Blissey. I'm like, okay, who gave you that? Anyway, so I don't know, it just felt all like I'm probably overreacting to it, and maybe it's a good thing I was thrust into this emotional register. I've noticed that the stuff that does kind of burst through the wall, and times like these are the things that really dig deep. To give you an example, my dad is one of the few people who can really boil my blood these days. But when he does, oh my God, I'm seeing red. But that's because he really hits deep in the core of, what truly upsets me, not this surface level. Someone used a, stolen team with things they don't understand and reap the benefits of it. That's just like, it's annoying, but yeah. But yeah, it was just a strange kind of lifelessness that I really, I don't know if it disturbed me, perturbed, like something less extreme than that. But it was strange, the same, not just the same, kind of recycling of teams and ideas, because most of it is recycled, and then the new stuff is stuff that was given by someone else. I realize I'm not being at my most coherent, but that is not what this video is fully about. Anyway, so yeah, by and large, it was just people using stuff others gave to them, and it felt like the game itself is not, I don't know, there's so much more to the game, but whatever, that's not really the point. And the other side of that is like the same discussions around it. It feels like, going through the motions and kind of, I don't know, like it feels never ending, not in a way like, like a good film, for example, like The Thin Red Line, for instance, which, for those of you who don't know, is a war movie, but it's one that doesn't really have a traditional, narrative. I mean, yeah, sure, there's battles, there's, soldiers, they're all traumatized, it's terrible and whatever, but, it takes a very loose approach to narrative to the point where it feels almost endless. It's very unique in this regard. And, that is kind of, it's, a very spiritual film. I don't know if it always works. I'm not crazy about some of Malik's more precious tendencies, but the overall impression is that, there is life beyond, this never-ending narrative, right? And this experience of watching, I mean, I know this probably sounds insane, but this experience I had of watching, these battles going on, felt like there was the inverse of that. It's just this sort of lifeless recycling of. I don't know, man. It's weird. I'm talking about Classic. It's a very difficult tournament and all that, but people who are participating in this tournament who just are content to have others tell them what to, or decide what they're going to use, and to such extent, I don't know. I myself am now going through similar arguments as before, and I don't expect anything to change, obviously. I would be stunned if that were to happen. But it's more the go beyond the details of the, make your own teams kind of thing, and more into the emotional tenor of this kind of sort of sleepwalking through the whole process, I felt very little sense of, life in these kinds of just, besides even the battles themselves, or like the teams, and or just like the way because so much of the game is how we interact with it. Of course, I've said that a lot, and just the perception of it feels so purposely dumbed down, just like active ignorance, and that is. I don't know, I've been working on some more of my really cool personal theories lately, and what's so bonkers to me about it is that, this whole denial of reality that we are all experiencing wherever you are in the globe. Obviously, it's not such an extreme in our Pokemon world, but the emotional undercurrent is what's interesting to me, because that is what's driving, if not overt nastiness towards your fellow Pokemon enthusiast, just pretending like you don't see what's going on, or rather misinterpreting it. Like, for example, in this replay that's on the screen for those of you who are watching, then there was a Metagross that made its way through a recovering Starmie through nothing but Meteor Mash raises, and a crit, but and it got not one but two, which is pretty nuts. That whatever you can say, there are odds, whatever the odds are, they're not good, and I feel like I guess this, you could kind of look at this as an update of that video I did recently about how people's perception of there were odds, it wasn't 100%, therefore it's not hacks, these weird logical leaps, and it just feels like it's reinforcing the side you're on before, which I also wonder about if Discourse and its existence or lack thereof. Oh, my microphone did the thing. Hopefully it was just a half a second. I'm keeping my eye on it. But yeah, truly changing someone's mind feels so ridiculously impossible, because I guess most of us are not professional debaters who are, because there's the issue, the core of the issue, and, we address the issue, because that's not what's going on for most people. It's, if they're defending the emotion they have with their position, their social standing with their friend, and my friend didn't hacks you because he's my friend and he's on my side, and you actually just suck for allowing this 2% chance to happen, when you could have gone for the 1% chance to happen, things like that. And again, it's like one battle after another. Like, this is, I'm not saying the aim of the film, which I loved, is to, persuade someone. It's not like a persuasive argument kind of essay film. But it feels like your mind is probably going to be made up, going into the theater for a lot of people. And, this is kind of the experience of, watching a Pokemon game for a lot. It's like, well, it happened, therefore it was deserved, This guy just crit 6 times in 8 turns, but he went for the moves, therefore it was deserved. For one battle, it's like, well, either you're... well, actually, there's a lot of discussion to be had about one battle, but, the simple version is, the extremes already know, going in based on their positions. Like an extreme right-winger is going to be like, oh, that was the most woke, soy, liberal, whatever the hell. which actually there's a video of Ben Shapiro calling it like, oh, woke movie causes, which is funny because, Paul Thomas Anderson is not, usually what you'd think of as, a bleeding heart target for, but then again, I saw that Critical Drinker video on, that was, the comments in that were so disgusting. I had no idea, not that I expected, much, but I didn't expect all the fucking racial dog whistles to come out there. I had no idea. Well, that's part of why I think the other extreme is, of course, leftists going like, this $100 million Hollywood film is not the, subversive, whatever the hell. And, which is funny because this is the first major film at least, that I've ever seen wherein the main character, Leonardo DiCaprio, calls someone a liberal as an insult, but it's because they're acting like they're not left enough. Whereas, some people would, do very well to remember that I, read a lot of film discourse online, right? And, you have a lot of, like, casual, e-communists, they're irritating because it's like, the Soviet Union was amazing, actually, and I live in the Czech Republic, so I find that various shades of amusing to not amusing, and always in disagreement with. But even if I get the idea. But yeah, then, a casual online film discourse thing will be like, oh, this film is so liberal, in the derogatory sense, in that it's not left enough. But, in real life, when you talk to people, if you ever hear, this, whatever this is, liberal nonsense, then it's not right enough. So for that to even be in this movie, among its, other things, which I think it's, I get the criticisms, but I think it does go a little deeper than it gets credit for. But that's Paul Thomas Anderson for you, a great, great director. Even though I still think I prefer Inherent Vice. Gotta read Pynchon's new thing, but I'm super broke, which is also preventing me from seeing One Battle a second time in IMAX. For now. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. It feels like in the Pokemon sphere, to bring it back to that, it's just kind of running the pre-written script for how you're going to respond to things, which, not always, I don't know, it's not always a bad thing. Like, obviously, if your sports team wins, then you're happy, and your sports team loses, you're sad. But I feel like, again, the detail is being stripped out of so much, and, this, I don't know, the emotional undercurrent of everything is what I'm seeing most of all right now. So that's how I've come to this video, whatever it wound up being. But yeah, so let me know what you thought about this. I think this was less tangential than most of my stuff. But who's to say? Like, I keep getting the urge sometimes to play, and then, like, I come back. That was the alarming thing, honestly. Like, sometimes I get the urge to, like, build a team, or, I got a really cool team idea yesterday, actually. And then I'm like, but then actually playing, just venturing back into the sphere feels like I'm being dragged back in time, as opposed to, oh, I stepped back in time, that was cool to experience, now I'm, in the present, but that was a good memory, and I can use it for whatever. And, the fear I had was just, getting sucked back into this black hole of, screaming into the void, with people I disagree with, playing, and all sorts of, with all sorts of things I don't like. With, like, this tournament is best of one because it's good, actually, which, I'm trying very actively to not go in those kinds of circles anymore. Or, the fact that you play someone, in a serious tournament, and what you're really playing is the, if you build and, make a team, you build a team on your own, you play them, then, but you're really building against the 5 people they have in their ear. There are so many top players who go around like begging people, oh, I need teams, and I really mean begging as in like they throw the crying emoji, like, can I get a team, crying emoji. And this is not a new phenomenon, but talking to them about, I remember like 10 years ago, Jesus, like 8 years ago or something, someone asked me for help, and I was trying to discuss this is the semifinalist actually in a big tournament, and I was trying to discuss, well, what do you think? This could work if you like this or that, and he's like, yeah, I don't really know. Just tell me what to do. And I'm just like, you are a semifinalist in a major tournament, and you don't understand the tier you're playing. So but the fact that they get that far because they have the right people helping them, and this makes me wonder: are we rewarding the right things and all these other things I've explored in recent videos, or not so recent videos. But yeah, like it's not a. I mean, it's a great feeling when you. From experience, when you go up against someone with an army of people helping them, and then you beat them, without much of the same, but like the oceans of effort to pour in, and just then the reward doesn't. I don't know. These are some mixed thoughts I had. So thanks very much for watching / listening. I hope you enjoyed, and please, wherever you are, go see One Battle After Another in theaters while you can. I'm not like a PTA diehard, but I mean, I like his films, of course. But and I think this has been overhyped just a tad. But I'm also wondering, has it really been overhyped, or did I only receive 70% of the electricity I know I'm looking at because of the aforementioned numbness of everything, which is an experience I've had with many films where people are like losing their minds, like the theatrical experience, and I'm like, that was pretty good. But I guess I should, that, if anything, that really reinforces how extraordinary it is, which is that, even in this state of numbness, if we can call it that, then I was still electrified in several parts. I mean, that ending alone. And it's very funny, too. It's absolutely hilarious. Sean Penn. And DiCaprio's whole, Lebowski thing. Oh, it's a great film. So, and put it this way, it is the best film you will see this year. I think Sirat comes close. I think Be Gone's Resurrection, which I was fortunate enough to just see, also comes pretty close. But most people are not going to be seeing those, in theaters near them, whereas One Battle should be everywhere. And yeah, it's great stuff. Some really essential stuff. Best of the year, one of the best of the decade, one of the best of the century. Yeah, so it deserves all the praise it's getting, and then some. Yeah. So, thanks again, and see you in the next one.